Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 22, which is called Jura. So this was an interesting chapter because on one hand, this is the chapter where the main hero of the story and the main villain of the story at the moment start their fight, it seems like. That should be super exciting, super impactful, but my feelings on the chapter are just that kind of surprisingly not that much happened. And to me the problem is that this is the issue I've had with certain chapters in the past, and that this is a really kind of strong example of just the page count not being used particularly well. The 40 pages for this month, and this is all we get, this is all the takeaway from it, that a lot of that page count got used very sort of like generously to do these kind of very early basic parts of chapters, that sort of thing. Starts of fights, the stuff that usually, like for this series, this manga, this artist, has never maybe been the strongest material. It's just that the characters dodging each other, throwing some basic attacks at each other, just the parts of the fight that it's not the most important section of the fight. And then there's not that much dialogue focus in this chapter, when I think they maybe could have had some somewhere. So the page count doesn't seem like it's been kind of assigned maybe as effectively as other chapters either. We're still in a overall good position for the series. Like, it's not like this chapter drags the series down or anything like that. It's just, this was a bit of an chapter amongst mostly a lot of quite strong chapters, while, impactful stuff is still sort of happening. It's just, it's not being shown to us in maybe the strongest way. And again, some of the stuff that I don't think works as well in the manga, I think will work a little bit better in animation, like they always do. Those sections of the fights that are kind of like a little bit dull in the manga are always kind of exciting in the manga. But anyway, let's get to talking about this kind of page by page. So our cover page is Boruto, looks nice, and the chapter once again is called Jura. So we actually open up on the Mitsuki Aria side of the story, because they're the only characters who aren't unconscious or dead. I have a problem with this side of the story where they've still not told us directly if Yodo is dead or not. They talked about her, like the way Kashin Koji, Boruto, and Ada were talking about her is like Yodo's already dead. But nothing from the reaction of Mitsuki or Aria really gives me that impression that Yodo has actually died just yet. It's just that she's injured enough that she will die if something doesn't happen, is sort of the idea that I'm getting, but they're not really telling me that. I get it, Sarda's still knocked out from using her Mangekyo Sharingan, and that is fine, and this forces Mitsuki and Aria to kind of have to take control of the situation. Mitsuki's going to take out the Claw Grimes, and he tells Aria to take the Thorn Bulb to Shinki. This is when Jura arrives on this battlefield, because this is where the Claw Grimes are, so he pops out here, but he immediately turns his attention to going to the other battlefield where Konohamaru is, of course, because that's where Boruto is. So we get Mitsuki identifying Jura, of course. The only significance here is that Jura does take a look at Sarada, ... and then moves to basically leave. Before he leaves, he does sort of get into position because he's basically firing off some sniper shots from distance before he properly moves to go to where Konohamaru is. But yeah, they do note here, and this is, I guess, important for later, Aria notes that why hasn't he grabbed Ryu's Soul Thorn Bulb? Like, we're not in a state to fight him for it, and it's right there. He's just leaving it, highlighting how little he cares about the other Divine Tree characters. In terms of the love dynamic, he clearly doesn't care about his comrades enough to in any way really try and protect them when he has something else on his mind, that sort of idea. So then we cut to Boruto, Konohamaru, and the remains of Matsuri. So they basically just wait for, from the kind of dust of her remains, the Soul Thorn Bulb to form and kind of spawn in. Boruto does sort of note that it was so easy for him to defeat Matsuri because she was already beat up. So that sort of highlights that that's not a normal thing, but I guess it highlights that Boruto probably does have the rough advantage over one of these things, but that was a particularly specific situation for Boruto to come in and just immediately end the fight. So that's that. So this is when the sniper shot comes in, just barely misses them, and yeah, Jura is here. So Boruto is going to have to act quite quickly. This is where, Konohamaru picks up the Soul Thorn bulb, so he has it in his hands. He knows that, this will be the thing that restores Moegi, right? Yes. And then Boruto is just like, hey, there's no time. Listen, get out of here with that thing immediately. You go to meet up with Sarada and the others and head to where you first met up with the Sand Shinobi, and then wait there for further instructions, whatever they are. So that's interestingly, like they want the two teams to form up with the two bulbs before trying to free anyone. Which is interesting because I guess they're somewhat close to the Shinki one, but I guess they have a plan to do this in a specific order or specific approach. We'll see how exactly it happens. So yeah, he screams at him to kind of move as Jura arrives. With the only real thing being that Konohamaru says, like, you're ... sort of figuring something out. But yeah, Jura arrives when we get the opening stage of this fight. He comes flying in, tail beast bomb. Boruto picks up Konohamaru, they dodge the big explosion. He then throws Konohamaru away, sending him flying to where he needs to go. And I think this is where we leave off for the chapter with Konohamaru, is just him running off with the Soul Thorn bulb, as Boruto is going to face Jura. Which happens pretty immediately here. Boruto teleports behind Jura, standard Rasengan to the back, doesn't really seem to do anything. Jura looks back, fires a tail beast bomb. Boruto teleports to avoid it. He lands on the ground as Jura is falling, tries to slice him up, but it gets basically kind of like blocked last minute. And he just notes that, Jura notes, impressive translocation. I like fighting strong opponents. It makes my heart dance with joy. So the emotion's beginning to come out here. He's kind of been waiting for this as they're about to square off. We then cut, interestingly, back to Ada and Kashin Koji discussing the events here. Ada notes that he seems to be handling things pretty well, but you say he has no chance. What do you mean? And yeah, he has no chance. Even Boruto knows that he has no chance, not with this current sequence of events. So Ada's like, he should teleport away then. He can't. They give two reasons for why he can't teleport away. I think the second one is a lot better than the first one, to the point where I don't know if they really needed to explain the first one. Just like long distance flying Raijin is tricky. He needs to sense chakra marked objects in the middle of a fight and they're far away and it's a tough opponent. He can't really do it. The other one makes much more sense because Boruto can't flee, because if he flees he's going to put his friends at risk and he would basically be just handing the bulbs of Matsuri and Ryu straight back over. And even though he's not really focused on those thorn bulbs, if Boruto is completely gone, he's still going to pick them up just because it makes sense to pick them up and revive them. That sort of idea there. So, Kashin Koji comes to the conclusion at this point that Boruto is done for, without a doubt. But he doesn't seem to be panicking, so obviously there's a bit of an addendum onto this. Like he's probably going to say something maybe in the next chapter to explain that he's done for, except for some of these more niche situations that can happen. And immediately you start to think about, well, we're waiting for Kawaki to arrive back onto the scene. That was the whole plan in the first place, is for the two of them to face Jura. And we haven't seen Kawaki in a while, so him appearing out of nowhere would make sense. 2, will Boruto be pushed to the point where Momoshiki makes his big 2 Blue Vortex debut? That's something everyone's been waiting for, and that would certainly be something that would be a bit more random, unexpected, and it might change things in their favor. I would also bring up the Jogan, just because, hey, if we need something crazy to happen, they always have that to pull out of the bag. But I don't know if that's really a thing they're focusing on at all in the manga. Who knows? But yeah, Jura then says to Boruto, I've come to kill you here, but hey, tell me basically how you know all this stuff about us and the thorn bulbs. It makes no sense. Who is your accomplice, your informant, basically? I really, really, really want to know. Boruto doesn't answer, of course, and he's just thinking like, okay, how am I going to defeat him? The Rasengan didn't really do much. Maybe I did a bit of damage. I need to use the Uzuhiko Rasengan to actually defeat him. So that's the focus of basically the rest of the fight. But, of course, Jura asks Boruto, what is love? My current opinion is that it is a concept that can be a fatal weakness for you humans, a flaw that is a side effect of being highly intelligent. Take you, for example. I suspect you know how minuscule your chance of winning against me is, and yet you still came here to save your friends. In other words, love has lured you here to the place of your death. So, again, this is very much in line with everything else. He views this as being a nuisance that maybe comes with being super intelligent. It's just that you care for other people and that makes you weak, whereas he's more kind of survival of the fittest, become as strong as possible in a logical kind of way. And he's seeing, I suppose, the other Divine Tree characters maybe suffering from the fact that because they're quote-unquote based on a person, they have some of those feelings in play that they're struggling to deal with, whereas he's kind of like the original. He is the Ten Tails, so he doesn't have that. So he, in particular, really doesn't maybe get what they're kind of going through, and that's kind of interesting. I'd also bring up at this point, remember the other thing we know about the Jura situation and why it's so dangerous, is that apparently they can defeat him as he is right now in the right circumstances, but if he gets too angry, enraged, like they properly make him mad and angry, he will be undefeatable for some reason. Now, I'm guessing that's more of the beast side of the Ten Tails comes out. Maybe the idea here is that actually the humanity aspect coming into the Ten Tails is what allows us the chance to properly defeat them. Whereas if they did just focus on raw power above all else, we might not actually have a chance. That might be the idea they're going for here. But anyway, Jura attacks him here. He's trying to kind of catch him in the kind of tree powers, basically. So we just get a bunch of panels here of Boruto jumping around and dodging. He's trying to put his feet on the ground because he has to plant his feet to do the Uzuhiko, because he has to connect to the planet to connect the rotational energies in that way. So he jumps up into the air. He gets caught with one of these tree attacks. He drops the sword, and he seems to be captive and about to be taken out by Jura. Jura picks up the sword. This is where Boruto makes a big fuss about this. It's a precious object borrowed from my master. Don't do anything to it, or you will face a fate worse than death. And again, Jura mocks him about this because this is the idea of like, oh, you even love kind of like these specific objects have meaning to you. I can use this against you. This is why it's such a weakness for you. So he's like, I'm still going to kill you, but hey, if you tell me where your accomplice is, I won't destroy the sword, basically. And Boruto just says, you might be right about love being a flaw and a weakness of us humans, but, and this is my opinion, that's precisely why you will never be more than just trees. He bursts out of the tree thing that he's stuck in. He has Uzuhiko kind of up and running, ready to go. He teleports behind Jura suddenly, hits him in the back with it, and it seems like Uzuhiko has been applied. So again, the fact that he sent him flying here doesn't really matter. It's more that he has, debuffed him here with Uzuhiko here. So it's the whole equilibrium thing, his sense of balance. All of this is eventually going to kill him in enough time. But then we get the interesting final 2 pages, which is Jura just is like, oh, this power, ... kind of analyzes himself from an energy perspective, activates his power kind of internally, and the swirling of Uzuhiko just stops. I see. It seems to follow principles similar to my Biju bombs. Hence, I was able to nullify it. And this is a disaster for Boruto because this was his big move, and it just simply won't work on him. What's he going to do? So he's in a tough position, but we were already told he was in a tough position by Kashin Koji prior to this, and also before this fight even happened, and just a few pages ago by Kashin Koji as well. So same sort of idea there, getting into the kind of specifics kind of a little bit here with this. It's a weird cliffhanger because I do feel the chapter has maybe been lacking in a certain amount of detail. This is a detail that I really feel they could have just thrown us in at the end. Like, do we really have to wait for next month just for him to explain to us some sort of connection between the Biju bombs and the Uzuhiko, which we kind of have a sense for what it is, but I just feel that they should have just given it here and moved on to the next stage of the fight next time out. Because obviously what they're going for here is that the Rasengan, we know, is basically based on tailed beast bombs in the first place. So the Uzuhiko Rasengan is like the ultimate Rasengan taken to a crazy extreme, where it's a Rasengan harnessing the power of the planet to apply the planet's rotational force to someone individually. And it's devastating because of that. So the fact that Jura was able to analyze it and be like, oh, it's similar, so I can nullify it, means that the Biju bombs also have some sort of a property where they're also connected to the rotational force of the planet, which is a bit weird because obviously the Biju bombs it's mostly literally a bomb. Like it's mostly portrayed as just this kind of energy blast type thing, whereas all the Rasengans don't quite do that necessarily. They're more throw people. There is a sense where they kind of like cut into people to a certain degree, but they're very different kind of avenues of things. So I doubt it's maybe the exact same principle of just like it's Uzuhiko in reverse, but probably more that, hey, because they're both linked to the planet in some way, I can just counter it. I don't know, maybe the Biju bombs is more about the gravity of the planet, and so he can just counter the spinning thing by just doing that. That's going to be some part of the explanation. I do hope it's more than just, here's why my counter to your ultimate attack counters, and more that, hey, let's take this principle that the Biju bombs are based on and make that a core of like what Jura's power set actually is. That it's Biju bombs in terms of sniping, small ones. He can do medium-sized ones, big ones, but also special ones that actually do all this other stuff that we didn't know they could do before. That is based on the kind of principle here that makes the Uzuhiko unique for the Rasengan to make unique beast bombs. That could be interesting. The other, I think, fascinating part here is just, is this the final fight? Like, we're here. It might take us a while to fully get everything in place, but like we're here. This incident here will be the final fight here, because it seems like we're down to Divine Tree characters now. They've not, who they're based on hasn't been freed from the trees yet, so they're not fully defeated. So they could still be brought back into play. But I'm beginning to feel that they're kind of accelerating the story at this point in time. So maybe Matsuri and Ryu are just defeated here. I think at the very least Ryu, they probably have to be done with. Matsuri, maybe there's a chance she gets brought back. But I think it's, if they want to move things along, that's maybe the way to do it. But because again, this is not the final arc. We know that there's still going to be Kawaki Boruto after this. There's probably going to be other Otsutsuki stuff afterwards as well from a broader perspective. So, like, how long is this arc with the Divine Tree characters going to be? That's the kind of question I have. Because we haven't really done a lot of setup on the the Mamushi side of things. He's the one who's targeting Ada. There's been only a couple of scenes on that side of things where, like, I guess Demon would come into play. Is that going to be activated at some point soon? We have to come back to Hidari, of course, but Sarada's knocked out. Again, there's a lot of moving parts here where it's like, we probably do want these characters active for a final fight, so we probably do have to resolve this battle and then come back again later for the actual final fight. So I do think what they're going to do here is probably have Boruto get out of this by a sudden, unexpected situation happening. Whether that be Kawaki arriving at a unique time, that's the simple option. Momoshiki, it probably is about time in the story where you should at least showcase something with Momoshiki where we are right now. Jogan, I'm not sure if we're quite ready for that, but again, based on the opening chapter again, don't they kind of have to do something with Jogan ahead of whenever we get to Boruto Kawaki? So something has to happen there, but I do feel maybe Momoshiki is now the time to do this, because Boruto's power set at this point feels very complete as a ninja. but then we've obviously highlighted that he knows basically nothing about the karma thing because of the restrictions there. So he needs to maybe lean more into the karma side of things, but we haven't really started that yet. And Momoshiki seems to be the barrier to Boruto even wanting to address that side of himself. So what happens here? That's kind of interesting, because Momoshiki's in a position where, like, Boruto seems to have the tools to mostly nullify him and keep him out of the way. So Momoshiki is either absolutely inactive as part of Boruto, or probably getting him into a situation where other people around him want to get killed. So I'm interested to see if we get like a Momoshiki kind of turn in terms of he's actually going to help Boruto, but that's kind of complicated. I think more Otsutsuki stuff definitely has to happen in the future, though. In terms of like what Kawaki's ultimate goal and drive is, he wants to eliminate all the Otsutsukis. Right now, he's very much focused on the Otsutsukis he knows about and that are in play. But there's other ones out there that we're very clearly not talking about just yet. So, interesting stuff there. But yeah, like I said, not the most amazing chapter here. It's not awful. It's just, I think there's a couple of runs of pages here where it just felt like, wow, all of a sudden we're halfway through the chapter already, and I don't think all that much has happened. Which is weird. It's super weird to say that about the chapter where Jura and Boruto have the start of their fight. But I think historically Boruto has had this issue with the manga specifically and start of fights, where it just feels like, okay, we're going through the motions here. These moves are not going to finish the fight. Let's get to the big stuff happening. And the first one is, of course, Uzuhiko doesn't work. What are you going to do? That's the big question we have here. And then, yeah, the other point is that, yeah, I really want to actually see what happens with, like, Konohamaru running off to find Sarada and the others to kind of unite the two thorn bulbs that they have. I want to see what's going on. Is Yodo dead? When is Sarada going to get up? Those are the questions I have, because I want to see how that party goes about maybe completing its stage of the mission, because I think we probably do have to restore one character soon just to highlight how it works, the specifics of that, and that obviously would bring Shinki and Gaara back into play, which could be pretty nice. Is it time for Moegi to come into play yet? I don't know, but then it does feel like who's going to arrive onto the scene to protect one of the bulbs, because I feel like we're not going to just keep everyone in play. It feels like we're going to get one at least. Maybe this is where like someone like a Mamushi kind of comes into play and does something, Hidari maybe, and they stop it from being two immediate victories. But like I said, there's a lot of moving parts in the story. I think the unfortunate part of this chapter is probably that they didn't use many of them in this one, that they very much went that like, oh, it's enough that it's just a partial fight between like two of the main characters, right? And it's like, nah, for a monthly manga, I do expect a little bit more than this in a chapter. Overall, in terms of just core takeaways from this month's chapter, it's a little on the light side for me. But like I said, not disastrously bad, but just kind of a little bit frustrating because you do have to wait a month for chapters. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 22. What are your thoughts? But otherwise, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.